Hi everyone, it's great to see you. I'm Natasha from AxelsonAcademy. Today we're going to continue talking about vocabulary development, the idea of a storyline and story arc, and we're going to be using a lot of manipulatives that are real hands-on and engaging for students. So in a couple of the past videos that I've done for you, we used the little red hen, and we used another version of that called Manana Iguana, which was set in a desert. And today we're continuing to look at versions of Little Red Hen. This one is called Armadilly Chili. So right away, you're probably having a good idea who is the main character here as opposed to the Little Red Hen and what they're making, not bread this time, but the Armadilly Chili. So students love to make these connections to their prior knowledge when we're thinking of the science of reading, and Scarborough's reading rope, that background knowledge strand, is really, really important. Also the vocabulary strand you're talking about, and then they also have a strand, language structures, and literacy knowledge, sort of that understanding of what happens in a fiction story, what are characters, what is plot, what is a narrative line. So this is a great extension to that. I'm going to give you an idea of how I would read this book, but you can tell I have a lot of props here. So when I do this book, I use an armadillo puppet. Now I find that kids, even up into second grade they love puppets. And even though I am sitting here and reading the story and they see my mouth moving, they're pretty sure that it's the armadillo talking. So this puppet and the materials I'm going to show you in this bag, I purchased from Mimi's Motif. This is not a sponsored video at all, but Mimi's Motifs is an online place that you can buy. She takes a lot of puppets, makes them herself, or she takes like the armadillo puppet and then she changes them up a little bit so that they fit a particular book. So this is under Armadilly Chili, and this is Miss Billy, the armadillo, in the story. And she has added the hat and the scarf to make it look just like Miss Billy. So when I start reading this book, I have a student come up and sit right beside me, and that student gets to be Miss Billy and have Miss Billy act out what's going on in the story. So students are very engaged in that piece. They need to be listening carefully and using that language comprehension piece to know what Miss Billy is going to be doing. So here is Miss Billy. I don't have a student with me today, so Miss Billy is just going to sit on my knee. The other thing that comes with this set of manipulatives, this little bag says chili on it. We have some of the other characters in the book, and these are like little finger puppets, so other students could be those characters. And then we have the ingredients that are in the Armadilly Chili that we're going to talk about in the book. So what I ended up doing, because I had a full class, was making some replicas of these so I could hand out ingredients. So every child had an ingredient in their hand. We have the beetles that are going to be ingredients. It's delicious chili. The peppers, we have the prickly pear cactus. So every child has in their hand an ingredient that will show up in the book. And as that shows up in the book and they're looking for the page that their ingredient is going to show up, I have my student here with Miss Billy. They come up and they add their ingredient to the bowl. And Miss Billy, our armadillo, has a bowl and is stirring in the ingredients just like Miss Billy is going to do in our book. So once again, we have that student engagement piece where they have to listen attentively to see where does their part show up in the book. And that's what we want. We want this excitement, this anticipation of what we're reading. So you certainly could do this at home. Your child could be Miss Billy here, and maybe we'd have the ingredients all spread out. You never know. Now, oh, and Pumpkin has decided to help me show the Frayer model that I have for this book. I am always looking for opportunities to add in vocabulary pieces here. So I am going to be introducing, the week that I do this book, the word ingredient, which is in the center here. And then I have my Frayer model boxes, the definition, the characteristics of what it looks like, examples and non-examples of ingredients. And this is a good lesson for after you've done a few Frayer models in the past. Ingredient is one of those bigger vocabulary words. There are lots of things that can be ingredients to things. It's not even just all cooking. You're going to notice that in this particular book, the word ingredient doesn't show up. But because we've already talked about what ingredients are, I want the students to be thinking, oh, you're all holding something in your hand that's going to go into our chili bowl. Those are all part of the chili. So we know the word ingredient is part of something. And before I begin reading the story, I would have us write the definition in here. An ingredient is part of something. And in this book, we are looking for the parts of the Armadilly chili. So let's go ahead and read the book, and everybody is going to be listening for when their ingredient shows up. You're going to be watching Miss Billy here as she acts out her part in the story. And you're going to be thinking in your mind, how is this the same and how is it different from the other versions of the Little Red Hen that we have already read? Armadilly chili. Miss Billy Armadilly skit-scat skittered down the lane. A blue norther's a-blowin' and my old cold bones are rattlin' for a pot of hot armadilly chili, she said. She was gathering beetles when her tarantula friend Tex came by. Who has the beetles? Oh, hold on to those for a minute. Hey, Tex, I'm making a pot of armadilly chili, said Miss Billy. How's about tapping your toes this way and helping me gather a box full of beetles? Tex wagged his long, jiggly legs. Shucks, Miss Billy, I'm going dancing today. Then I'll fill my box with beetles myself, harumphed Miss Billy. If you have your beetles, would you come on up and put them in Miss Billy's bowl? And everybody would come up who had the beetles. We'd add them in there. And we always get some, oh, this is so gross. We're putting beetles in the chili. We talk about how armadillos eat a little differently than we do. When she finished, Miss Billy headed for her garden. She was picking jalapeno peppers and chipotle chilies when Mackie the bluebird swooped down from his bush. A cold norther's a-blowin', Mackie. How's about whistling us a tune and helping me pick a peck of peppers for my armadilly chili? Asked Miss Billy. Not today, Miss Billy, said Mackie. I'm shaking my tail feathers to the movies. Miss Billy snorted. Then I'll pick a peck of peppers myself. And who has the peppers? Okay, come on up. Let's add them in. Miss Billy had to pick all those peppers herself. Oh, she must be getting tired. After she finished, Miss Billy scurried to the prickly pear cactus patch and started chippity-chop chopping. Her friend Taffy, a horned toad, looked down from her rock. How's a gal supposed to concentrate with such a racket going on? Taffy, I'm chopping cactus for my armadilly chili, said Miss Billy. How's about helping me chop a chunk or two? Oh, you have the prickly pear cactus? Great, hold on to that. Can't you see I'm lacing my skates? I'm skating the day away, said Taffy. Miss Billy's face turned red. Then I'll do the chopping myself. When her basket was full, Miss Billy hurried home. Okay, bring up your prickly pear cactus. And now Miss Billy is going to get ready, and I'd have the student take the spoon in their hand and get ready to make the chili. She began to fix her armadilly chili. She mixed and stirred and cooked and stirred some more. Soon the Armadilly chili bubbled on the stove. Miss Billy was carrying out the trash when Tex tottered up. "Howdy, Miss Billy," said Tex. "It's a mighty cold night, and I could smell that Armadilly chili a-cooking all the way home from the dance hall." Miss Billy plunked the lid on the trash can. "I have a saying, Tex. No working with Billy, no sharing the chili. I'm afraid you danced yourself out of dinner, cowboy." "Whoa, I'm sorry you feel that way, Miss Billy." Tex whirled around and hurried home. Miss Billy stood there feeling sour as a scorpion. Suddenly, Mackie blew in on a cold breeze. Now, if you ended up getting the finger puppets of the other characters, that's where you would have the student who is our bluebird blow in on the breeze to act this part out. "It's a rough wind a-blowin', Miss Billy, but I could face it if I could warm myself with a bowl of that fine-smelling Armadilly chili." "Sorry, Mackie," snapped Miss Billy. "No working with Billy, no sharing the chili." Maybe remembering that movie will keep you warm. Mackie's tail feathers drooped and he flew away. Now notice, that's the second time that Miss Billy has said, "No working with Billy, no sharing the chili." And that is just such a rhythmic phrase to be repeated. I frequently find that the little ones start saying that along with it. Really is adorable. But I would be encouraging that because they are listening to the sound of that text. They are participatory in this reading then. And even though they're not directly reading the words, we are building that sense of story with them. Miss Billy went inside to stir and taste her chili. We'd be stirring and pretending to taste. It needed a little something. She dropped a few more peppers in the pot. "Ding dong!" Miss Billy answered the door. Taffy stood there shivering. "I'm freezing, Miss Billy. Could I beg a bowl of your hot Armadilly chili?" she chattered. Miss Billy shook her head. "Land sakes, Taffy, a horned toad with goosebumps is one sorry sight, but no working with Billy, no sharing the chili." Taffy shivered and stalked away. Finally, the chili was done. It smelled delicious. Miss Billy took a taste. Her ears drooped. Her Armadilly chili just wasn't right. It tasted flat as a Texas prairie. She checked her recipe. She hadn't forgotten anything. What was wrong? She looked around. Her kitchen was warm and bright and cozy. Outside, the wind howled and whistled. Miss Billy peered out the window into the darkness. "I know what I forgot," she said. Turn to the person next to you. What do you think Miss Billy forgot? We have a moment for discussion there, and here we're using a prediction strategy. Students need to be directly taught that as they're reading, their brain is working to formulate what they think is going to come next, and then they confirm or revise that prediction. So here, they're taking the information so far, what we know, well, maybe she left something out of the recipe, who knows? And they're going to take their background knowledge. Well, when my mom makes chili, we put beans in it. Maybe she forgot beans. And then we're going to come and we're going to say, okay, how close were you? And how do we revise the answer to reflect what the author tells us? Ding dong, the bell rang again. Miss Billy opened the door. Mackie, Tex, and Taffy stood in front of her. She gasped, "Land sakes, your noses are as blue as I feel. What are you carrying there?" "Sacks full of apologies," Tex said. "Well, come on in," said Miss Billy. "I brought a thermos of hot apple cider for sipping with friends," Mackie said. "I brought hot jalapeno biscuits for sopping with friends," Tex said. And I brought homemade chocolate fudge to sweeten us up, Taffy added. Miss Billy hugged them all. Friends, that's what my Armadilly chili was missing. The 4 friends set the table together, then talked and laughed long into the cold, blustery night. Turn to the person next to you and tell them what ingredient Miss Billy found she needed with her Armadilly chili. And they talk about how we needed the friends there. And the Armadilly chili was perfect. Oh, great reading. And at this point, I would thank the child who had been Miss Billy here and let them sit down. And Miss Billy could be a frequent visitor in your classroom. We also use this puppet when we're studying different animals, and you can see how this particular armadillo actually rolls up and has Velcro, so you can see how when we do protection and the adaptations animals have, we use this puppet too for the armadillo. Okay, Miss Billy can come over here for a minute and sit in the chili. Okay, so now we come back to our word ingredients. We had ingredients in the chili. Who remembers what were some ingredients in the chili? They talk about the beetles and the prickly pear cactus. Fabulous. You know what? I love to bake cookies. Does anybody know some ingredients that could go into cookies if we made those? And this is really interesting because I always get some students that have seen cookies baked and they're like, oh, sugar, butter, chocolate chips. And then I always have some students that don't have that background knowledge. So we're starting to build the background knowledge there. And if you have any of those hands-on activities or experiences that you've done in class, this is a great time to bring that in. Well, guess what? Ingredient doesn't always mean things that you're going to eat or bake with, because we were missing an important ingredient here of having really tasty chili, and it was having friends there. And we were not eating the friends, thank goodness. That was a part of something. And remember, our definition is an ingredient is a part of the whole. And having the friends there were a part of having delicious chili. So we're going to think of some other things that aren't food where there can be ingredients. And this is a time, it depends on the age group you're working with, whether I now stop and come back to this on the next day, or I decide to continue. But for the sake of this video, that is where I am ending for today. Please like and subscribe so you can see our next video that comes out. And I'll be sharing with you a short assessment that you can actually give your students to see if they have that deep understanding of a word such as ingredient. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video. Pumpkin, you were